Welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time for the final class of the top 10s in June of 2024. This has really been an absolute blast to do. We're going to be going over skill today. Remember, if you haven't seen the scoring metric, how we do the whole thing, go ahead and keep watching. Otherwise, look at the timestamps in the description. You can jump straight to the beginning of what is on screen right now, which is my Discord server rankings, and then you can get to where myself and the Illuminati give our top 10, really 15, for the skill class as it stands in June 2024. Let's get to it. All right, let's jump into this very quickly. And remember, if you've already seen how this format works, go ahead and just jump to the timestamp that I've listed in the description and get right to the rankings. Now, this is how we've broken down every single champion, rated them. This is when I talk about the thoroughness, the hours, the debating, going back and forth. It is a lot of fun, but this is how we do it. And then this is how they're all scored. And every month that is presented in the general tier list. We've been doing this for, I think, 4 years now. So let's go over this. And this is how they're going to be listed now. There are four categories. They're not equally weighted, but there are 4 general categories. There's ease of use, battlegrounds, war, and general. And then general is an added up score of those other 4 categories. And we'll talk about them when we get to them. Ease of use, this is worth about 3 points. This is the epitome of it, is Sunspot. I know often we think of like our parry heavy champions, like an Archangel being the easiest to use. And I'm not saying they're not, but we are including champions like Sunspot, phenomenal champion, not a knock on him. And in fact, I know many players like the spreadsheet because they can configure it for ease of use, even though I always present it every month without ease of use. For the sake of these rankings here in June, we will be including ease of use. Moving on to Battlegrounds, this is worth 10 points. And you see my Battlegrounds rankings every single month. We've been doing that since before Battlegrounds even came out. We're now adding even the scores so you can see them. Photon is a 10 out of 10 in the dual threat category. She's a very good defender, a menacing defender. There are some very good counters for her though. If you pull Photon, someone pulls a Mantis, you throw her on attack, and there's a lot of meta defenders that she is very, very good for. So she's the perfect example of a 10 out of 10 in Battlegrounds. Moving on to war. War is in an interesting place, and I won't take too much time for this, for that discussion in this. But in war, the relevance really there was outside of sagas, outside of metas, and these sorts of things, attacker tactic, defender tactics. Who are the champions? Who are the few champions that when you're in tier 1, you're 2, you're really pushing, I don't know, tier 3. Who are the champions that are almost always someone you're looking to assign? Yes, there's going to be times and metas and defenders, things like that, can X them out. But some champions just flat are more usable than others in war, and Tiger is definitely the 10 out of 10, at least for now, in war. That's an example of that. Now moving on to general, you have a total score of 15. This is the biggest because I know not everyone does war, I know not everyone does battlegrounds, but everyone plays the game. And this is broken down into long form. You can get up to 3 points for this. This is the most heavily weighted on Necropolis. We've had like all the various of Legends content, and of course Grandmaster's Gauntlet, and then now there's the EOP and things like that. All of them are going to be presenting different challenges, defenders, node sets, trap nodes, and those sorts of things. And then of course, like in EOP, there's even our hashtag objectives and things like that. But there are champions that we can say, especially looking at Necropolis, just appear to be better in long form than others. You think of your Kate Bishop, Wong, Aegon, Shuri, those sorts of things. Champions have all been rated across there for their ability to ramp up and then maintain that ramp. You think of like Dani Moonstar, she can do massive damage after a ramp, but it starts all over. Very rarely you're going to be using her for your long form, maybe an EOP sort of thing, probably not in the Necropolis or the next version of Necropolis when it comes out. Moving on to flow. Spider-Ham is the epitome of this. In fact, it's when I came up with the term flows, and when I first covered him years ago when he came into the game. I'm going to read it to you. How well do a champion's abilities and specials fit together? How easily does a node or a defender or an AI throw off the attacker? How relevant is that in today's game? Example is Spider-Ham is a 5 out of 5. I literally came up with this term and this definition because it is different than ease of use with Spider-Ham. You need a power sting, he's got it. He can apply them without even needing power. You need a taunt, he's got one for you. You need an evade, it's available. All of the specials do something, they help him out. You land the heavy to keep his spider nonsense high. You gotta play him well. I don't have him as a 3 out of 3 ease of play. He's high though. But it's his flow, in my opinion, his flow and his budget and his meta that make him so incredibly powerful. Moving on to budget. This is also worth 5 points. How many relevant abilities and immunities are in the champion's kit? utility brought to a fight, and also damage is part of this. So yes, you may not have the most utility, but if you got enough damage, you're going to get at least a decent score of this. Hercules, right? You want him to crit? He can crit. You want big crits? He can do that too. You want to go unblockable? He can do that. Yeah, you got to get close to death, but still, he can do it. He can just do so many things. He has relevant resistances. He's a phenomenal champion. His synergies are great. 5 out of 5 budget. Everything that could be packed into one single champion and still be in this game is there. 5 out of 5 budget. There are a few other 5 out of 5s, but Herc is my favorite example of it. Meta, this is the one that we really need to stay on top of. Really, when we're talking often, if you see me promote or demote a champion, or when I come out a little bit like hesitant or conservative on them when they're new, it's their meta score that's quote unquote holding them back or moving them up, because I'm just not sure how they're going to be used. And then as time shifts on, some champions become better in the meta and some become worse. Like CGR's meta score has actually gone up as late. We've talked about that a lot on this channel. And if you think about Hulkling, I actually talked about on stream today, he came out as a penny counter. But he was so good across so many ways, and some of it's flow and some of it's budget too, that he's not just for your tech champions. Like if you think about future Ant-Man, he happens to have a Pierce. So a lot of your tech champions who are problematic, Iron Man Infinity War is coming back, well, Hulkling can go unblockable. But he's also then good outside of that. He's got his resistances, or I'm sorry, he's got his immunities and those sorts of things. But Onslaught comes out very problematic defender, no like seemingly hard counters outside of Havoc necessarily, but people were using Hulkling for Onslaught. He's just so meta relevant. This can shift. This is the one that we're always keeping our eye on and why champions get promoted and demoted. Hopefully you have a really good understanding of how the tier list works, the scoring and all of that. Okay, these are my Discord servers rankings, right? Everyone gets a chance to vote. Thank you to Eggotron for compiling all of them. I appreciate it. We've done it every June and every December, and I appreciate you keeping that going for me and for everyone there. You know, the list looks actually really good to me. I think there's always arguments for good arguments. And I don't mean like bad. I mean lines of reasoning for these things based on how you're playing the game, what's important to you, and things like that. The one thing that I did want to point out was the ranking of Crossbones. Hopefully you've seen my my video talking about, I believe Crossbones is the best available 7-star champion in the skill class right now. And so my Discord server is wrong there, and I want to make sure that they know that. Guys, you're wrong. You're right about a lot of stuff, but not on this one. All right, let's go ahead and get to mine and the Illuminati's rankings for the skill class. All right, Valkyrie comes in at a tie for number 9. And I'd like to try to remind everyone that this rankings, the way this was compiled, does include the ease of use category. When I present this every single month, it's been going on for 4 years now. I do not present it in the video with ease of use. It is part of the spreadsheet though, and that way you can always go and look at it, click that box whether you want that to be something that's considered for the ratings or not. It was at the advice and at the hard work of the spreadsheet wizards. So I really do appreciate them making sure that that was available to everyone. Now, the honorable mentions before we fully jump into this are Black Cat, Falcon, Jabari, Shang-Chi. Kind of tough for me to not see him up there. I wonder if he's going to be up there soon. Elsa, Atuma, and Spider-Man Stealth. Spider-Man Stealth, I think if it's a 7-star, we may see him up there, but I don't know. The skill class is very, very good as I look at this list. All right, let's go ahead and look at Valkyrie, right? Tied for number 9. When we talk about the things that are like unique about them, and she's the champion that like when we talk about just being able to get around things in the game, like just never face the threat of the node or the defender, she is the epitome of it. And she is kind of broken in that place. And that's part of why I wonder if we see her as a 7-star, despite having her as the number 9 champion in her class. Still a phenomenal, phenomenal rating, but it is something like she can literally defeat an opponent and never hit them outside of hitting their block. That says a lot. And in many ways, that might even be more powerful than champions with power gain, like Hyperion and things like that. They're equally as powerful, but I just wanted to give that analogy so you can understand how intense this is and how insane this is, and why once it was figured out how to play her and what she could do, thanks to Bitter Steel and others, we all recognize how incredibly powerful it is. So she has fallen down a little bit in the ratings. A lot of it because like I don't think we're being asked to do that as much. We have a lot of answers for nodes and defenders and things like that, and the new toughest defenders that have come out, you can't just get around them the way she can. She's also not as available as a 7-star. I think if she was, there'd be no reason to think that she'd be falling down, and she'd probably even rise up a little bit in the rankings. All right, let's go ahead and move on to who she's tied with for the number 9 spot. It's been really cool for me to see how much the community has come around to a Bullseye actually being a good attacker. Trust me, I get it. He is such a frustrating defender, and I've covered that at length. But I did also do the video quite a while ago on him being a good attacker, and I was like, he's really good. He's in the second tier for me of champions, and if you're in my second tier, that means you're a phenomenal attacking champion. He has guaranteed crits. He can't miss, like literally ever. Like apparently he just can't do it. You can't even try. And then he can also counter evade off of his special one, and he can keep that going pretty well. He has a unique playstyle, getting to that SB2 pretty far, right? And then triggering your Killer Instinct, and then throwing that, and then following up off of your that with your SP1 while they're stunned, and you've got a nice Fury. He has all of those crit bleeds and things like that. And I know that means he doesn't do as well against champions that can't bleed, but he's such a powerful, powerful defender that I understand. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's cool to see. Like, I know a player who plays very high Celestial, and they've told me they actually use their Bullseye. They think they would estimate about 50% of the time on offense. A lot of that's due to players at that level knowing how to counter him so well and having so many counters into their decks. But it's cool to know that that is possible with this champion. And I've done the video showing you him doing great work in Tier 1 War, thanks to my friend Hot Fuzz of SSX fame. All right, let's move on to what is a 3-way tie for the number 6 spot. All right, interesting enough, as I record all these videos, we had a long discussion this morning on my Discord server about Mole Man. And it was really good, and it was really healthy, because it was one of those things we talk about a lot in this game where you got to play who you enjoy. The game is big enough and complex enough that there's probably going to be a champion you enjoy that helps you handle a challenge. Whether it might be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 that could all do it, you're going to do the best with the one you enjoy because you're going to know how to use them. And some champions just like make sense to us and some don't. And Mole Man is one of the ones that like, Adamantium shows me fights and other people show me fights, and I'm always like, that looks cool. And I've used Mole Man and had a lot of fun with him, especially in war, when it was like, okay, you're going to take these 3 fights. And I would really think through what's the strategy for each of them. But outside of that, like, there's something about him that I just don't enjoy. And I do think, and I will say, part of that was his fix. And it's pretty clear from the way he's written that that was what was intended, okay? And we're not going to rehash that whole thing. He's still excellent, though. He's still fantastic. You can take hazard shift with him. You cannot. You can keep up your true, I think it's accuracy. You cannot. And either way, you can eventually get to frenzy. And that's what Adam's been talking to me about a lot, is you get to that frenzy when you know you're ready to end the fight. You know, you take the hits into the block and you go nuts. And then on top of that, he's got the whole unstoppable. So he's getting intercepts and things like that. Plus, I believe he's shock immune and has multiple damage sources on top of his guaranteed critical hits when he's in frenzy. He really is a fantastic champion. He's out as a 7-star now, and so I think as a result, he is here to stay. Do not see him moving down or off of these rankings at all. Let's get to who else he is tied with at the 6th spot. All right, now on to one of my personal favorites. You know I love this champion. He's phenomenal in battlegrounds. He's very good in questing, and he's good in war. He does have limitations, though, that make it so that in questing and in war, he's just not as usable, right? Due to the defenders or the nodes, often the nodes and things like that. And he doesn't have as much versatility, which is why in a speed-based game like Battlegrounds, getting to Ignited, getting to the Special 2, and just detonating people or defenders allows him to kind of overcover some of his lack of utility. But don't let that fool you. There is utility, and I haven't shown it yet because I asked in the streams a couple of times, and people were like, no, do this video first, do this video first. And I think a lot of it's because I've done so many MCoC videos. If you look at his special one, there is a way of playing him where you can get a very long disorient, and it gets it at, I think it's minus 50% defensive ability accuracy reduction. And then he has a clause in his kit about the ability accuracy reduction when hitting into an opponent's block, I believe it is. Yeah, it's a 50% defensibility accuracy when hitting into the block when they have a single debuff. And those two things do stack. It's one of the reasons why if you face me in Battlegrounds, you seem to be able to take your things so quickly, your thing defenders, is because you can just shut off things' ability accuracy when hitting into the block that way. He also has very good bleed damage. Oh, it's fine. But his incinerate damage is phenomenal, and he just doesn't get enough credit for that because the damage off the SP2 into the block when ignited, when there's an Incinerate up, which is very common. I know that sounds like a lot of conditional clauses, but they're not that hard to get up. It's part of his natural play loop. And that gets all of the kind of fame and glory. But the Incinerate damage is fantastic, phenomenal. I've shown that in videos. I really love this champion. I think if it was not for Battlegrounds, he would not have as high of a score. And that's one of the reasons why on this tier list, you have the ability to just uncheck Battlegrounds. If you do not enjoy the mode, then you will see him fall because he's not as valuable in questing and in war. But he is fantastic and he's very usable in both. And I will continue to rank him. All right, with Mantis, there's not a ton to say. I think if you know Mantis, you enjoy Mantis, you've got it. This is a champion that is building up to massive SP2. She has the AI manipulation, and a lot of that's due to, or the way it works, or the purpose it serves, is to actually help her ramp, like her sleep mechanic, right? And then you get to your SP2, you hopefully have all 20 of them lined up, and then you put the opponent to sleep, and you land a massive SP2. She has the cleanse mechanic, which is significantly stronger against science champions, which is fine. You know, I would have, of course, loved it to be stronger and more universal, but I get it. It makes sense with her kit and what she's trying to do. If you love Battlegrounds, she's a champion who punches sideways and down very well. In my opinion, she doesn't punch up as much as well, no, she punches up just fine. She just doesn't do it that well or extraordinarily well. And in essence, if you have her 7-star rank 2, I don't know how many 7-star rank 3 she's taking for you, but if you have her at the highest rank in variety, there's not that many champions she can't take, except for ones that have a cap on how much damage they can take in a single hit, or someone with some sort of immortality effect. She's a very good champion. She's an absolute blast to play. She's incredibly well designed. There's not much else to say about her. She's a great champion. All right, remember, keep in mind that the easy use score is included on this, because hopefully you've seen my recent Crossbones video and you're gonna be like, wait a minute, you have him rated above Chila, but now Chila is gonna be tied number 4 with him. So like I said, keep that in mind. That's what the difference between the way I present the tier list each month and what we're doing today. I love Crossbones. Hopefully you've seen that video. And one of the big points of that video, the myth that I was debunking in that one, in my opinion, and I feel strongly about it, is that he doesn't need high sig to take a lot of these debuff matchups. And that's something that I've heard time and time again. And to be honest, even I kind of bought into it, because I was like, oh, well, he's only got a 54% chance to shrug these debuffs. One, it's all debuffs. It's not like damaging debuffs or non-damaging debuffs or even just a certain single debuff. It's all debuffs. And at SIG 40, it's over 54%, if I remember correctly. But additionally, because of the way he works, right? Like if you want his most efficient optimal loop, you're not triggering his overrun until you've got your debuffs up or your furies up. But if you just want to shut down the ability accuracy right away and help get the fury buffs going, you can just trigger it early. And then the ability accuracy of the node has now been reduced. Now I know that ability accuracy reduction protection is coming more and more into the game, and it feels like it's solely focused on Archangel, but really it's all of these champions. I mean, Falcon is really strong, Black Cat is really strong. And so yeah, that hurts Crossbones. Yes, he's not as good against non-heroes, but as I said in the video, well over half of the game is actually tagged as a hero. Additionally, and I showed it in the video, he's very good outside of non-hero matchups. He's phenomenal in hero matchups. That all adds up to a very strong champion in a huge complex game. I love him. He also doesn't crit. The SP1 serves a purpose, and if you want to damage over time, solid incinerate damage, you go with the SP2. He's relatively simple. He does take a high skill, but he's relatively simple. I'm going to continue to work to get him and get out more and more Crossbones videos. In my opinion, if the champions above him do not come out as 7 stars, he will only continue to rise in the rankings. Let's move on to who he's tied with number 4. Geold is a champion that, similar to White Tiger and to Werewolf by Night, I personally don't have a lot of experience with. Now, I've pulled her on the Vega Prime account, and I pulled her as a 5-star. And she is not in the tier above all, so I can rank her up and use her. And I have been, and I've really been enjoying it. She's been doing phenomenally for me. I have a feeling I'm going to use her a lot in Act 5 and Act 6. And I hope to get to understand how to use her better. I know she's got the cleanse, which is very, very powerful. She's kind of an annoying defender to fight against in Battlegrounds, And then, of course, she has the massive, massive bleed damage. I know she's good in war. SSX used her all the time. She's decent in battlegrounds as a dual threat champion. And then Bitter still, like, soloed like what felt like half of Necropolis with her. All of those things combined to a very, very strong champion. And I believe it's her signature ability that helps her out significantly in matchups where the defender or node makes it bleed immune. Very excited. I hope I pull her as a 7-star soon. And if not, I'm glad I've got her on the Vega Prime account so I can continue to play her and get to know her better. I do not think she's moving down. I do think if you remove ease of use from the equation, I currently believe Crossbones is a slightly more valuable champion. But I think you're starting to split hairs, which I'm happy to do when I'm talking about Crossbones. This big boy is nutty. It did not take me long in playing him when his buff went live to be like, we have a new best skill champion in the game. Fury's amazing. Fury's great. We'll talk about him in a second, okay? He's still rated slightly ahead of Fury and of Kingpin. And these are a clear 3 and then a delineation. So Kingpin's on his own as 3. The way his Purify works is even if the debuff sticks, eventually it's going to fall off as he gets enough debuffs on him. And then he uses all those to power up. And then he's healing the whole time. And then off his special one, he can get over 100% ability accuracy reduction. There is a lot of crossovers between him and Crossbones, and I can understand why a lot of the Illuminati's like, Crossbones is not as strong. I get what you're saying, Vega, but Crossbones is not as strong, and they're probably right. But that's probably why Kingpin's not coming as a 7-star. This guy is bordering broken, and they keep buffing his synergy partners like Mr. Sinister, which really has me feeling like we're not seeing this guy. Not for a while. He's not as broken as Fury or Hercules or something like that, but he's definitely overpowered. He's got the degen off the SB1, and it's the unstoppable off the SB2. I love playing him. I love this big boy. The only reason why he will start to move down is because he's not out as a 7-star. He's even a decent defender. So many of the mutants counter him now, and the mutants have grown enough that we're starting to utilize them more and they're modernized. So I think Kingpin's defensive prowess has actually gone down a little bit, but that's just due to people having more mutants and having them in their decks and things like that. All right, let's move on to what is a 2-way tie for the number 1 spot. We've got Nick Fury here, right? I mean, Nick Fury's first life is really good, but then he's got a second life what's even stronger. That comes with a massive Fury, and he can counter miss and evade. And I know that he has like the kind of weakness, let's call it, of needing to keep up the technical charges, but we know what he does in his second life, and in his first life, if you use him with the Valkyrie relic, it minimizes that quote-unquote downside. The thing, I'll tell you, like, you've seen me talk about Fury, and I think it was a year ago I moved him down, and obviously that was too early. Obviously it was. Now, I do think that eventually happen. I don't think we're going to see the 7-star. I think this is a broken champion. We've seen him, come in with bugs, and then they try to fix it, and then another bug, and then there's counters that supposedly come, and then that gets bugged, and it just feels like part of it's got to be Fury. Like, why is this constantly happening with Nick Fury? The other thing is, and this is why I use the term broken as opposed to overpower him, is I remember going back years, kind of reading through his kit. I finally pulled him, read through his kit, and I was trying to figure out how to use him, and I kept like using my heavy to get up the internal bleeds. And then finally some people were just like, hey, look, it's cool that you're trying to use how to use him, but don't worry about that. Just endure combos in light. Spec into deep wounds and endure combos in light. And I was like, that is just stupid. Like, there's a whole kit written, but the bleeds are so outrageously strong that you can just completely disregard the kit. And I don't know. I like the character Nick Fury, and I like what the champion can do in the game, but I guess I just don't have a lot of respect for the kit put together. But I can't disregard, that. And if I'm giving out rank up advice, he's incredibly, incredibly powerful. He's great in battlegrounds. He's great in war. He's great in questing. The only way he really fully, truly starts to move down without other very powerful skills coming to the game is if he never comes out as a 7-star. All right, I think you know who he's tied with for the number 1 spot. Let's go ahead and take a look at her. All right, my boy DLL, Daddy Longlegs made Kate Bishop, and I went out and got her. I went out and got her, right? And one of the things that I immediately did in a video, because I used her in Battlegrounds, is I was like, I am getting these phenomenal results, and I'm only using my special one. And then thanks to the Vega Battleground Championship, like we all got to see like live right in front of us, people like Bittersteel and Fintech utilizing her and just taking out opponents that had up until then been considered some of the toughest defenders in the game. We then had Necropolis start to come out, and I decided to go ahead and test her long form capabilities. Put that video out, and it was just wild. Then Necropolis itself came out, and there was no way for any of us to have known this, but they actually had a node that ended up rooting you and keeping you right close to the defender, which ended up actually helping Kate's play style, and she just became dominant in Necropolis. So this very powerful champion in the new Everest content in the game, they built, which was clearly supposed to be a challenge, and it was. I'm not going to say it wasn't. But the champion that was amazing for it ended up being helped by it. And it ended up just kind of in this really fun scenario where Kate Bishop arguably became the best champion for Necropolis, I think tied with Aegon, and it just depended on how you wanted to attack it. She's great. She's phenomenal. I fear it's going to be a long time before we see her as a 7-star, but I do love her. And here's the thing, is all of this was primarily just with her Cold Snap pre-fight in Necropolis. And we went over this in so many videos, and I know I did solos and things like that. You did want to eventually start to cycle through her arrows. And people played her even better than I did and got even faster results. But you can do tremendous work with her, right? And she can, it's her tranquilize. You can start keeping debuffs off you and things like that. And you can even get to where you're getting the caltrops, which is the bleed. And if you force them to, I think, throw their heavies and their specials, that gets going too. She's phenomenal. She's great. My boy did a great job of designing her. I love her being in the game. And, I think it's just really, what do you want, right? She's an okay defender. She's not a great defender outside of very certain metas. So if you want like that kind of dual use champion in Battlegrounds, Fury is better. And if you're looking for just your pure attacker, it's definitely got to be Kate. This ends the class rankings. I've recorded a lot of videos today. You can hear it in my voice as we get ready to go on vacation. But I've started this amazing series. We have so much fun with it every June and December. I will record the top 30 in the game and get those out as well. I hope you've enjoyed this. I can tell a lot of people have based on the views in the comments. But as usual, let me know what you think we got right. Let me know what we think we got wrong. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.